I think we're running out of things to do here, you know?
My job was, how do I find 10,000 rats? We had a rat breeder, we had a couple of rat breeders, and we started breeding rats.
Because in order to have rats that aren't infected with some virus or disease, you have to basically cultivate them from living births. So our animal handlers gave birth to something like 2,000 living rats. And they were everywhere. Now the set was half water, it was like an aqueduct. And we had rats, walking the very narrow lips of the aqueduct and coming out of holes. Rats in poor Alison Doody's hair. I put bugs in Kate Capshaw's hair, put snakes around Karen Allen's neck, and now we were putting rats in Alison's hair. I mean, do we have any shame? No, we don't.
Unfortunately, the female characters in Indy had to go through the most abuse of the kind of creepy, crawly, disgusting scares.
That was a big bone of contention as well at the audition. They were asking whether I would have a problem with that scene, and I said absolutely not. They're not your average sewer rat. They were clean rats, and there was no problem with the rats.
Well, happily, rats are another thing that don't bother me very much. When I was a young teenager, I was a nature counselor and coincidentally did have as pets black-hooded rats, first 2 and then pretty soon many, many, many more as they multiplied. And so I was quite used to handling rats.
Actually, I mean, they have personalities, rats do, compared to snakes and insects. Man bites rat. Freak accident.
Well, I'm not going to set a live rat on fire. I might have no shame, but I do draw the line somewhere. We had a lot of mechanical rats that were created just to set on fire. So all those were mechanical rats that were immolated toward the end of that scene.
An awful lot of the movie for me was very physical. I mean, the running scenes. I mean, the whole piece in Venice. I cannot tell you how scared I was. I'm running in high heels. My shoes are giving way at this stage. They're very wet. And I'm jumping from wet shoes onto a wet boat. And it was tricky. I was driving this boat, and I had never driven one of these boats before, and the whole thing was just move into the scene, get out of the scene, let them do the fight, and I kept banging into the walls, and they were going, it's fine, but just come back into the scene now and go out of the scene, and it was just chaotic. Chaotic, but they knew exactly what they were doing. It was just mad for me, and it was a very physical scene as well, with Harrison fighting on the boat and everything.
I hate shooting in the water, even in tanks.
Well, we were on the back lot of Elstree in the little pond there. I guess they call it the Studio Lake. Not quite a lake, it's much smaller than that. Elliott Scott and George Gibb had built this tremendous propeller on the back of part of a ship. And the thing moved around, and it was made of metal, so it was not safe to be anywhere near it, and we weren't. And we did use stunt doubles for certain scenes.
That part where the propeller was in that tank was about 15 feet deep, but the rest of the tank was only about 4 feet deep. So we had the boat that was rigged onto a long track, and then we had a big winch that pulled the boat along slowly into the propeller. And as the propeller chopped up the boat, we had explosives in the back of the boat just to enhance it and make it look a bit more interesting.
We made the back of the Chris Craft inboard motorboats a little bit longer so the prop could have a lot of boat to eat up and not put the actors in harm's way. And by shooting with a very long lens, I think I shot with a 250 millimeter focal length lens, it made you think that the actors were closer to the props than they actually were.
Now battle off and tell Baron Brunwald that Lord Clarence MacDonald and his lovely assistant are here to view the tapestries.
Yeah, that's good. That's very Scottish.
He's very Scottish?
Yeah, very Scottish.
Expert on Scottishness here now. Today's expert on Scottishness.
I had a Scottish Terrier that looked like that. That's what I know about Scott. And action.
Junior?
Yes, sir.
It is you, Junior.
Well, Sean, at first he resisted the idea of playing my father. He's only 12 years older than I. And also felt that the character was too thinly drawn. And he's a great student of history, Sean is. So I think he brought a lot of ideas to George and Steven, which were incorporated into his character. He is less Yoda-like than originally thought of, and quite the match for his son in many ways, including the fact that the central heroine has had a physical relationship with him before she ever meets me.
How did you know she was a Nazi? She talks in her sleep.
Sean made major contributions to his character and to kind of the story throughout the whole production. Sean would come over to George and I and say, look, anything Indy does in the story, the context of this story, I have done better.
But we were able to twist it into something funny and make it all kind of humorous rather than serious.
I can't forget how wonderful it was.
Thank you. It was rather wonderful. One wanted to make not a very harmonious relationship to begin. When we discussed it, like sleeping with the same woman was a bit of anathema for George, but he eventually came round to it because it's possible and funny.
What you taught me was...
We had dialogue like sitting down for the first time, and Harrison said, well, you know, you never took any notice of me when I was a kid.
That we've hardly spoken for 20 years.
You left just when you were becoming interesting.
Well, that's a terrific formula. And it makes for good comedy, character, and fun stuff that plays right.
I gotta tell you something.
Don't get sentimental now, Dad. Save it till we get out of here.
The floor's on fire. See? What?
Fire's like a wild animal. Once it gets going, it takes a lot to stop.
Dad, move!
Working with fire, you have to really be careful what you're doing because it can easily get out of hand. On the different parts of the set and all the curtains and the drapes and the furniture, everything is fireproofed with a special solution. But you have what we call a gas poker. It's like a long bar, could be 3 feet or 6 feet long with a long slot in it.
Yeah, Dave, no higher, that's good, no higher than that.
And fire comes out the gas poker, and then when they cut, we just turn all the gas bottles off and the fire just goes out.
Kids don't try this at home. It's really best left to professionals like us. People who really know what they're doing.
The search for the Holy Grail is also the search for Henry's book, his diary.
You're going the wrong way. We have to get to Berlin. Brody's this way. My diary's in Berlin.
That diary is sort of like the Ark of the Covenant. Keeps switching hands, goes back and forth. First the good guys have it, and the bad guys have it, and the good guys get it back. So the movie does become a chase movie, and when I cut the movie together and looked at it, Mike Conn and I put it up on the screen, just the two of us, we realized that the film did not have enough action, at least not enough action that I thought the audience was expecting. And cut. So we thought of a good scene in the sidecar with the motorcycle and did a very short chase, shut it up in the Bay Area, outside of where George lives in Lucas Valley. And that was fun to shoot.
You know, we had a lot of Nazis in the film. All of those uniforms, I think, were genuine ones that I found in Eastern Europe somewhere. Joanna Johnston worked with me on the 2 last Indiana Jones pictures. I would give her research pictures and sketches and drawings and things, and then she'd go out and find it all.
All you guys who do this, you can have your fingers crossed behind you.
We played one of the scenes on the Zeppelin. All the passengers were wearing fur coats and hats, and it's supposed to be in the wintertime. And I played it without my trousers. And Harrison said, "You're not going to play the scene without your trousers." I said, "Well, if I don't, I'll be stopping all the time because I sweat enormously. I sweat very easily." Well, he did the same.